be with you again, especially at this time of the year. I just want to go ahead, as I usually do, and give a status update in terms of our COVID metrics. We are in a much better place, thankfully, than the last time I was here. You can see just what a steep decline our cases have done in the last several weeks. You can also see how high that peak was. That was a level that most of us didn't even think we would reach. So it feels really good to be on the other side of it. That doesn't mean that we don't have virus transmitting in the city, because we do. We continue to see positive cases every day, though our average has dipped below the highest severity level, and that's a good thing. Hospitalizations are trending in the right direction. We still continue to see deaths. We are averaging, since the beginning of the surge in mid-December, about 1 death a day from COVID in Orleans Parish, and that's a lot of people. I'm hopeful we are at the tail end of that. You might have noticed, though, that LDH reported yesterday we had 3 pediatric deaths just last week. So this is real, and it's serious. And I want to focus a little more on deaths. I want to really highlight what Orleans has done in comparison to several of our peers. We have high vaccination rates compared to the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Since the beginning part of the Delta surge and continuing through today, we have measures in place that are different from those of our neighbors, namely our vaccine negative test requirement for certain high-risk entry into high-risk places, and our indoor mask mandate, which has been in effect longer than most, if not all, of our neighbors. What you see here is the results of that. When you look at the deaths during that period, so this is starting August 1, 2021, and continuing until February 15th, which is when I calculated it. This is the incidence of deaths from COVID-19 in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and in a representative suburban, exurban, and rural parishes. These aren't the raw numbers. This is the number per 100,000 residents. And you can see that we are have significantly fewer deaths of our residents from COVID compared to the state at large, almost half, as well as others nearby. And that, to me, is all the evidence you need that we have a community that takes this very seriously, that employs the protective and mitigative measures that we know works, and it's saving lives. Our vaccination status, again, you can see if you look at everyone in the city of New Orleans, we are more than 2/3 fully vaccinated. This is a 2-shot series, or 1 dose if it's J&J. That leads Louisiana and the national average. Our adult vaccination rates are tremendous. Almost 85% of everyone 18 and above in the city of New Orleans has a full series, and that is going to serve us well for a very long time. Our pediatric rates are coming along. They are not where I'd like them to be, given, again, that children are dying from COVID, but they do lead Louisiana and the national average. And our boosters are coming along as well. This is becoming increasingly important, as I'll show in a later slide. So we really are encouraging boosters.
Dr. Avegno, can I ask a question about that slide?
Yeah.
So I do think these numbers are encouraging about how many people have gotten the vaccine, and obviously I know we still haven't been approved by FDA for children 5 and under. At this rate, is there a point where we can start saying this is what herd immunity looks like, or because the population here is not fixed and there are variables like people coming from surrounding parishes and being a tourist destination, that's going to be a moving target?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think most public health experts have gotten away from the term herd immunity because the virus keeps changing and the number keeps changing, right? With the original wild type virus, 70% full protection probably would have been enough to push this firmly into endemic territory so that it would just flare up here and there, but no big deal. But as it's mutated and become more contagious, and in some cases more deadly, as we saw with Delta, that number doesn't really work anymore. What we can say is that this is a really high level of community protection, and as I'll show in just another slide, with a booster, if we can get our booster rates, what our vaccination rates, more and more evidence is coming out that that confers lasting immunity beyond 6 months, beyond 9 months. And that's going to be, I think, what gets us to the point that you're talking about. We're close, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, and that, I mean, I didn't want to jump ahead, but that is something of interest. Like, number one, if you're boosted, the science right now is you don't need a second booster unless
Correct.
you have an immunocompromise issue.
Correct,
So-
and I will get to that.
Okay, sorry. I just think the data is exciting, and the fact that being vaxxed and boosted,
Yes.
is being shown now through your T cells and through all of your natural protections to heighten what you have is an important message to keep on
Right.
telling people, because the fully boosted rate, the fully vaxxed rate is great. If we can get that booster rate up higher too, we're approaching really good territory.
Exactly, and I will say that what I don't have on this slide, which is even more encouraging, is if you look on the CDC page, our 65 and older boosted population is even higher. It is in the range, I believe, about 65%. That is the group that we want to get boosted first, because they are always going to have the most severe complications and the highest risk of hospitalizations and deaths. So the good news is that those most vulnerable appear to be getting boosted at fairly high rates. We really need, we can push them farther and then get everybody to come along with them. We're doing pretty well. Just a little bit about Omicron. It is still the dominant variant worldwide. You're seeing big surges in other countries happening that lag ours a little bit. We are still averaging over 2,000 deaths a day. We are at 930,000 plus deaths in the last 2 years from this pandemic. That's just an astonishing number. I think we probably will hit 1 million deaths in the U.S., and I don't know of any other condition that is preventable that we allow that many deaths. So it's still really a national tragedy. There's been some focus on new forms of Omicron, specifically the BA2, and there's 2 kinds of BA2. There's a lot of debate. BA2 Omicron does seem to be even a tiny bit more contagious than regular Omicron, which is hard to imagine. So far, we're not seeing that there's more severity. It's pretty early, but good news, I think, on that front, that right now we don't think that we're going to get hit with another Omicron type wave. We're watching it very closely. So here's the research I was talking about of why boosters are key. This came out just in the last week or two. A full series, and CDC is defining that as a primary series plus your booster, produces an immune response that's not just antibodies. People focus a lot on what is my antibody levels. I had antibodies to COVID. In any immune response, antibodies are one way that your body fights the infection. But there are T cells and B cells that, particularly in this infection, seem to confer long-lasting memory, right? The T cells are smart. They see it, they know what it is, they remember every time you get exposed in a different way than antibodies do. And so what studies of doing a 4th dose, another booster, have found on non-immunocompromised people is that it really so far doesn't seem to give you any benefit, that booster is enough to provide robust protection, and it seems like it's going to do it for some time to come. Now, whether that's years, whether that's a decade, we don't quite know, but that's giving a lot of public health experts confidence that we're not going to keep having to get boosters. So for right now, get that booster, and hopefully we'll be good for some period of time. And you can see what your risks are. This is CDC data from December at the height of the Omicron surge. If you were fully vaccinated and boosted and you had COVID, your risk of death was more than 40 times less than a non-vaccinated individual. We do know that natural immunity, if you've had the virus, does give you some protection for a short period of time, but it does not seem to hold up, and it does not seem to have these significant impacts on your risk of death. So for me, that's all the information that I would need to want to go out and get a booster. So to the topic at hand, large events. What makes me really happy about seeing our numbers go down, obviously a number of things, but we're now able to replicate the conditions that we were in Krewe of Boo when we did our surveillance, and we were able to conclude that with low viral transmission an indoor mask requirement, and a vaccine test requirement for high-risk sectors, we did not have an outbreak from that large uncontrolled event. That finding has been seen now in a few other places, in Lollapalooza, which was a very similar conditions, and a recent study of a New York City convention, again, with the same requirements that we have, that if you've got masks, testing, and vaccine requirements, you do not seem to have a large outbreak. So as a scientist, you always want to make sure that the real world conditions match the conditions that you study. And so our real world conditions now are very similar to the ones that we've seen as successful, as long as we keep up the mitigation measures. And what are those? Masks in public indoor spaces. Every time you wear a mask, you decrease the chance that you will give or receive COVID. You blunt the transmission, you break a link in the chain. As we've seen with Omicron, when there are so many links in the chain, every one is important. Every one is an infection that doesn't go to someone else and doesn't spread to multiple other people. So everything we can do to keep that compliance is going to be helpful. Our vaccination rates and our boosters, as we've talked about, we know that's going to protect us, especially our elderly and those at risk from severe disease and death. It's going to keep our hospitals relatively stable so that they can handle the influx of revelers as they always do, and it's going to give that lasting protection. And then again, our vaccine test requirement prevents that influx of people who may not be coming from a place with the same kind of requirements and levels of vaccination protection that we have, and it sort of levels the playing field so that we are all engaging in activities but with the same mitigation levels. So I'm really excited that we have our department has worked really, really hard with lots of partners to make sure we have the most robust public health approach to any large event, I hope, in the history of New Orleans at least. Part of that is widespread at-home testing, right? We don't want anybody to say, gosh, I kind of feel cruddy right now, but I don't know where to get a test. I'm just going to go to the parade anyway, no big deal, right? We have our static test sites that everybody knows and loves, whether it's Mahalia Jackson or UNO. Those will be open most days except for Monday and Tuesday of next week, but they are rocking and rolling as they always do. We're excited to partner with CORE, who have been a great partner since the beginning. Starting today, they're going to be testing at the airport. We know based on previous traffic data that the airport starts to get about 20,000 visitors every day, starting today and going through the next week. That's a lot of people who might be coming and who might need to test before they come and enjoy all we have to offer. So CORE is going to be there in the arrivals area, I believe between baggage claim 4 and 5, but we'll have the information for you. So that's another option for our travelers. Our first aid stations had a great weekend last weekend. They will be up and running again today. We have plenty of home tests, and we went through the crowd. We went into bars in between parades handing out home tests. We want everybody who comes out to the parade to have the opportunity to get one. These are take-home rapid tests. You can do them whenever. We are asking that individuals, when you do take it, we have a little QR code on it, just anonymously tell us your results. We want to know what the results were. No name, nothing. It's just for our surveillance efforts. And then we're really excited to be partnering with several of our prominent Mardi Gras organizations. I have a few that didn't even make it on the slide because they just came together. Tomorrow, the Crew of Muses has graciously invited us and allowed us to ride in their parade. We'll have a car early in the parade, and our possibly bedazzled volunteers will be handing out at-home tests to the crowd. So this is a great carnival throw. So don't, get a shoe, but make sure you get a test as well. We're also partnering with the Crew of Zulu for their Mardi Gras event. We will have a table at the event that's out there at Woldenberg. We will have home tests there, so if you want to pick one up when you come to the event. And we just confirmed that the Bon Temps baby dolls are going to be dressed in their finery and handing out tests on Frenchman Street this weekend, which is really fun, and we are so excited for all the partnership. We've also got vaccine sites. Again, if you haven't gotten a booster, this is a great time to get one before you really head out into the fray. Lots of vaccine sites still available, including Mahalia, which is not listed here, but we've got a calendar that most of you know and love and can look for vaccine sites. So I'll stop there if there are any questions.
Any council members have any questions?
I have a couple.
Sure.
Sorry, Dr. Avegno, you also said as we're starting to move from pandemic to endemic, which I know is starting to become a conversation globally, nationally. Do we have to look at the parishes outside of New Orleans to make that determination for ourselves too, or do we look independently at our own numbers?
No, a regional approach is always the best approach because COVID doesn't stop at the borders. And so we're really grateful. I have regular communication with our regional medical directors, kind of get a finger of the pulse of what's happening statewide. I'll say that our numbers are coming down somewhat faster, and our percent positivity is improving faster than our neighbors. However, our neighbors are all improving too. And so again, Carnival is our thing though, right? Carnival is the high risk event in Orleans that's not happening to the same degree in St. Tammany and Tangipahoa Parish. And so our risk levels are higher, but it's encouraging that they're improving as well. And, again, our hope is that immediately after Carnival, we are hoping to remove some of these requirements, as we've said from the beginning.
Okay, and I guess that sort of leads to the natural, next thing is, during hurricane season, we tell people at a certain point, hurricane's coming, we've mandatorily asked you to evacuate, you haven't, you're on your own. At what point do we start saying you ought to be boosted by now? And, how long we keep on going through restrictive measures when we've been preaching for forever to get your vaccine, get boosted. And I know we're trying to use very much a carrot approach, but is there a time where we just have to say, you're boosted against MMR, you're boosted against polio, you need to be boosted for this too? Right.
So, of course, what would an endemic future look like? Mm-hmm. And when it will come, when it will really come, I don't think anybody knows. We're hoping that this is the beginning of it. But what that looks like is life goes on as normal, again, as it generally is now with, a few little tweaks. But when we start to see a surge, right? And I didn't mention, but we've added wastewater testing starting last week. We're starting to take wastewater sampling. That is going to be the canary in the coal mine. Wastewater surveillance for COVID can give us an idea that a surge is coming even before people start testing, which is really interesting. So when we start to see a spike, we'll be able to message. What happens in other societies too that are used to this, that have dealt with these sort of endemic recurrent outbreaks, is that you message that it's coming, you message with, everybody should maybe take precautions, and then you message, well, perhaps it's time for all of us to put masks back on, not necessarily an indoor mandate unless the circumstances dictate it, but let's all take some precautions while we know that there is a surge coming, and then when the numbers start to recede, we would all choose to stop doing that. I have great confidence that New Orleanians will do that because I think they have understood what protective measures do, how they've saved lives. And so I am hopeful that in the very near future we can get to that point. And by very near future, I mean in the next couple of weeks, not the next couple of months or years.
Great. And can I ask just one more technical question? I love that slide that shows the protections against death. Being vaxxed and boosted, does that also have a difference between getting short-term versus long-term COVID for, in terms of people who have, asymptomatic or very minor symptoms versus really these terrible cases that you read about where people have long-term issues?
That we don't really know. Long COVID is going to be a really big challenge. I think you've seen some reports lately of just the cardiac complications. Young, healthy people who either had mild or asymptomatic infections and now months later are finding structural cardiac problems that they've never had before that are attributed to the inflammatory response of COVID. We know that there is some evidence that vaccinations and boosted do protect against long COVID, but because long COVID is not well known or studied, we don't even know what percentage of people will go on to develop it. we don't see we can't really say the direct impact. We know there's a benefit, but I can't tell you how much of a benefit.
Dr. Avegno, I have a few questions. The first is, I know you're doing testing on route. Is there any discussion about doing vaccines on the parade routes or around the parade routes?
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion about that, and ultimately decided not to, because number one, there's storage issues, right? Those vaccines have to be kept super cold, and that's as anyone who's had a cooler at Mardi Gras knows, it's hard to do. And if they get too warm, then we have to throw them away. We don't want to do that. We also talked to CDC and others about this, and other places that have tried to do vaccines around big events have not found a lot of success. People, they'll pick up a test and put it in their bag for later. They don't want to be bothered with getting a shot when they're going to the festival or the concert or the parade. So we didn't want to overtax our volunteers for something that probably wouldn't be high yield.
Other than the NOLA Ready testing sites and where you can I think you can get vaccines there as well. Is that right or no?
Yeah, so at the Mahalia Jackson, you definitely can.
And can you still find vaccines in our pharmacies and make?
Oh, yeah. Just a few weeks ago when my daughter became eligible for a booster, I was able to get her an appointment at one of our local pharmacies. Super easy, lots of appointments. And I've heard the same. I haven't heard that there's any problems with that.
I want to turn to something that's a little sensitive to me. I was called out in the media for not having a mask on during the mayor's ball. I did have masks on at certain points, but can you remind us all in the public of what the indoor mask mandate means for eating, drinking, taking photographs? Because I think we all may get caught up in a party, but let's remind ourselves and the public what it means to have the indoor mask mandate when you're eating, drinking, and taking photographs.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. The indoor mask mandate, as you said, it means that in any indoor public space, you should be wearing a mask unless you are actively eating and drinking. There isn't a specific clause for photographs.
Right.
I will note that many people have chosen to take off their mask, take a photograph, put the mask back on. Certainly that is a relatively low risk. However, if you're doing it, 100, 1,000 times a night, then it maybe violates the spirit. And the reason for that, and there was again, a recent study that came out in the last week, county mask mandates have been shown to significantly decrease overall levels of cases in that area. They took a big look at counties that had mask mandates and those that didn't, and there was a significant difference. And again, as we are welcoming 1 million folks here, and as we are just locally coming out of a terrible surge, we need to employ the measures that we know are going to work. So, I have been to events where I have worn masks and had a really good time. It really doesn't diminish your fun. And what it does do is, again, just blunt that transmission, decrease the links in the chain.
And I think we're going to have some beautiful weather during this Mardi Gras, so is the advice to go outside to take your pictures?
Yeah, exactly. Outdoors, and I was out on the route, working and with my family this week. Outdoors is far safer than indoors. If you're going to be up in that crush of the crowd trying to get a shoe or whatever you're going to get, I would wear a mask outdoors in that situation. But if you're going to be on the neutral ground, chatting and barbecuing and just sort of hanging out, playing football with your kids, that's a really safe activity. And again, the weather's going to be beautiful, so why not be outdoors as much as possible?
And one final thing as we're talking about masks, are there any mask giveaways that you know of? Because people are running short and running low and don't quite know what to wear, so.
Yes, our first aid stations all have masks as well. Thank you for bringing that. And hand sanitizer, if you need some of that, which who doesn't on the parade route?
Wonderful. Any more questions? Councilmember King.
How you doing, Dr.
Hey.
Avegno? How you doing? I could ask this a lot, and I'm not the expert. You are, so I'll ask this to you. What is the benefit of the vaccination mandate, or either show your vaccination or the negative test in the past 72 hours, and the mask mandate when you're going to have the world's largest outdoor party coming up in the next few days. Not sandwich, but follow up with the French Quarter Fest, then Jazz Fest, and then everything else. So a lot of people ask me, well, what's the point? And you can to have these requirements and these things put in place when you're going to be outside amongst millions of people without a mask.
Well, I think there's a couple of points. I think, first of all, they work. They have contributed to our significantly lower death rate, and anything we can do to do that is a good thing. The degree of exposure at Carnival, the repeated exposures, is far higher than any other festival, right? And you can say that, a jazz fest is kind of like a Lollapalooza, is kind of like a Coachella, is kind of like a big convention, right? Because it's not 1 million people, it's 100,000 people, a couple of days. I'm not saying that there's no risk, because of course there is. The other thing about Carnival is, remember, the outdoor stuff is risky, but slightly less risky, but there are so many indoor things that go on around it. You don't just go to one parade. You go to 7 parades, and 3 balls, and 2 captain's dinners, and 5 of your friends' parties on the routes, and those are generally indoors. And we know, we only have to look at Carnival 2020 to know how deadly those were and how quickly the virus spread in some of our more prominent Carnival crews, right? So we're also, again, the number of people coming into New Orleans for the Carnival season is far greater than any one of those individual events. And so it's the layers of mitigation. When we started planning for this, we started in the summer, meeting with the CDC, talking to every other place we could think of that was kind of like Mardi Gras, right? Boston Marathon, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, State Fair in Minnesota, the folks in Chicago, right? And all of those, all of those recommended the same things that we're doing today, but none of those was the scale of what we have as Carnival. It was, a tenth of our scale. And so really, we have the biggest show on earth, we have the biggest party on earth, so we need to have the strongest protection on earth.
That makes perfect sense. And I wanted just to add that tomorrow, February 24th, 1 to 5, 1905 Newton Street, which is the NAMTOC headquarters, in preparation of the NAMTOC parade, which is the only West Bank or Algiers parade in the city. There will be a COVID vaccine drive along with the booster shot drive. That's in partnership with Dillon University, DePaul Community Health, and of course the NAMTOC jug. So anyone who want to get vaccinated, tomorrow is a good chance to do that.
I'll make sure that that's on our NOLA Ready calendar if it's not already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember King. If there are no other comments from the dais, I know we do have one online public comment.
Sure, we have comment from Jasmine Ortiz. She says, will the proposed COVID-19 initiatives keep citizens safe during Mardi Gras and prevent a surge of the virus? Do the citizens of New Orleans support these COVID-19 measures? What more do you think should be done to ensure citizens are protected from COVID-19?
Well, that's a great question. I certainly hope so. We are putting in all of these protections to keep our residents safe. I would again ask our citizens, if you feel ill, if you're not feeling your best, please consider not going out, or please consider skipping some of the activities, getting a test. Make sure you don't unwittingly infect others that you're going to be around. So I think we all have some individual responsibility, as well as our levels of community protection.
Dr. Avegno, thank you so much for appearing. It's important for everyone to get vaccinated if they haven't, but please go and get some of those home tests and make sure you test before you go out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from the Downtown Development District. Good afternoon. Will you go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we can get going with your presentation?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Davon Barbour. I'm the president and CEO of the Downtown Development District, or DDD.
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Carter. I'm the Director of Finance and Administration at the DDD.
Good afternoon. I'm Donald Klaus. I'm the Public Safety Manager for the Downtown Development District.
Good afternoon. I'm John Roussel. I'm the Public Space Operations Manager for DDD.
All right, thank you. Well, Madam Chair, committee members, first of all, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Downtown Development District and our staff, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee this afternoon. We are really excited about the future of downtown. I would say more than ever, urban markets need help, downtowns all across the country, and we are really dedicated, working alongside our city partners, to really create a high-quality, world-class downtown. So a little bit about the Downtown Development District for the board's, for the committee's background, as well as the public. The Downtown Development District is just one of 2,600 place management organizations in the country. Simply put, our mission is to make sure that downtown is the place to be, to live, to work, and play. We do this every single day with the support of small businesses, hoteliers, property owners, to ensure vibrancy in our community. What you may not be aware of is that the Downtown Development District is actually a leader in this regard. We were actually the first place enhancement district in the country. And so what that means is property owners within downtown pay an extra ad valorem tax, which funds our operations. We do everything from cleaning, safety, hospitality, marketing, to ensure that downtown is vibrant. Just by way of our boundaries, on the screen here is a map that illustrates our geographic boundaries. So as an organization, we manage 160 city blocks. That's a lot of territory to cover. Downtowns certainly require a lot of help, particularly just given the level of the intensity of uses in those districts. We serve multiple market segments, residents, visitors, as well as workers. So in terms of our boundaries, it's essentially Claiborne Avenue to the north, the Pontchartrain Expressway to the west, the Mississippi River to the south, and also Iberville to the east. Just by way of background, we actually share Canal Street in terms of management with the French Quarter Management District. So a little bit about, downtown and its economic importance. Certainly, downtown is not only important to the downtown itself, but it's also important to the health of the city as well as to the region. Downtown is the largest regional employer. We've seen tremendous growth over the past few years, $7.5 billion in investment. We have a number of small businesses and restaurants and sidewalk cafes. Certainly, we know the pandemic had an impact on many of those businesses, and so we work tirelessly to help bolster them, to keep them afloat. The hotel market, we all know that with Mardi Gras coming, our hotels will be full. And so we've got over 21,000 hotel rooms in the pipeline. What's important to note, again, hotel development remains strong, but we need to continue to support that effort. At the height of the pandemic, the Four Seasons Hotel and Residences opened. Just a few weeks ago, we also opened a Hotel Indigo within downtown. So it's exciting to see that movement. Downtown is a place to live as well. We continue to see residents move into downtown. We have over 7,800 residential units. And certainly from an employment standpoint, downtown New Orleans is the largest employment center in the state. And many of those employees are housed within our approximately 9 million square feet of office space. So tremendous opportunity, and downtown is very important to the region. In terms of some of our core services, downtown New Orleans is no different than DDD from many of our peers across the country. Many of our core services include clean and safe hospitality. And so what I would like to do is talk a little bit specifically about our clean and safe programs, the core of our operations. From the public safety standpoint, we have 3 teams that specifically work to address public safety. We have our public safety rangers. These are full-time personnel. These are civilian personnel as well. Extra eyes and ears for our citizens, for our residents, and for our workers. They are unarmed, but they're extra eyes and ears. They work in close collaboration with the police department. They help our visitors, providing direction, helping them understand where to take the trolley, where to go. These men and women are tirelessly working around the clock. In fact, our rangers work 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. We also contract with NOPD. We have additional police details. Our security services are around the clock, and so it's really important that we provide that additional coverage given the level of uses within our district. We also have private security patrol as well. Our private security patrol bolsters the efforts. They are armed security, and again, working in our residential areas and our tourist areas, as well as in our business core. In terms of our public safe operations, again, these are the men and women that really work tirelessly around the clock to ensure that downtown is clean every single day. Our cleaning services operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Many of our core services include litter removal, graffiti abatement, sidewalk tree maintenance, weed abatement, and also street pole banners. Many of the banners that you see throughout the district announcing many of the special events in our district, our operations team handles that. And certainly we cannot, of course, ignore special event cleaning. We know that we are in the midst of Mardi Gras right now. There will be 31 parades that traverse the downtown development district. That's a lot of manpower, a lot of visitors, but also tremendous economic impact. And so we have to make sure that we're in a supporting role there, working alongside our peers to ensure that downtown is clean. We also provide assistance with respect to homeless outreach. This is a critical service. I will say that downtown New Orleans is not unique when we compare ourselves to other communities all across the country. We know that homelessness is complex. There may be issues related to housing affordability, mental health assistance, substance abuse treatment. And so, we work to connect individuals with services. I would like to note that the Downtown Development District does contribute $500,000 annually to the Low Barrier Shelter. Again, this is a facility that provides temporary housing for those in need. On the economic development front, when we talk about commerce, again, it's important to ensure that downtown remains vibrant, not only to the city, but also to the region. We work tirelessly, in short, to ensure that downtown is healthy, that it's a place to do business. At the end of the day, we want small business owners to be successful. We want major corporations to move here to create good, high-wage, high-value jobs that really lift every New Orleanian into prosperity. And so we're passionate about that. We work tirelessly to develop community master plans. You may be familiar with some of our past efforts with Duncan Plaza, looking at efforts to revitalize Canal Street. We also facilitate development as well, working with private developers, connecting them with businesses to help fill vacant space, retail support. I can tell you, I've been pounding the pavement, meeting with a number of stakeholders. I know we all have big dreams for the restoration of Canal Street, and so we'll talk a little bit about that more as well. And then finally, market analysis. Our job as the DDD is to really create a compelling reason for someone to invest in our community. So just a couple of examples of our economic development work at play. This graphic on the screen here illustrates some of our facade improvement grant projects. The DDD for several years has provided grant funding to property owners and businesses to improve the exterior of their property. Those improvements might include painting, pressure washing, signage. We're big believers in the broken windows theory. When someone comes to a community, if they see disrepair, then it's likely to encourage illicit behaviors or also just give the general impression that no one cares. That's certainly not the reputation that we have for our community, and so we work in partnership with private businesses and private developers to accomplish this effort. Just another example of our work on the screen here. This is 621 Canal Street. You can see the before image there, a really burnt out building. You can clearly see through it. And in the after, clearly revitalized, new windows, new storefront there, painted. This is the type of character that we'd like to see all throughout the district. Another example, 814 Canal Street. Again, you can see a facade that's really worn down, that's been battered, that's been weathered. At the end of the day, after the end of the day, you can see this revitalized facade here. Great business here. In fact, we've been working very closely with this business owner who's continuing to expand and to open additional businesses on Canal Street. So it's this type of partnership collaboration that's critical to assist us in continuing the forward momentum in downtown. On the marketing front, our communications team works tirelessly to broadcast all the efforts that take place in downtown. We have a website. I encourage the public to visit downtownnola.com. There you can find information on all the events that take place, business openings, all the happenings, relevant activities. It's your one-stop for information. We also regularly publish a weekly newsletter as well in terms of the highlights for the week. So, we're here today to talk to you a little bit about high quality of life. And so let's really get into the meat of it. We all enjoy traveling, visiting cities. I've had the opportunity to work and lead revitalization in many communities. And, wherever I work, I walk away with something that I'm inspired about that community. On the screen here are what I describe as attributes of high quality of life. When you visit a place, certainly it offers a high desirable place to live, to work, and play. At the end of the day, you're telling your friends, you need to go take a vacation there, or you need to open a business, or I want to live in that community. That's high quality of life. It's an environment where there are attractive and well-maintained properties. Again, you heard me describe the importance of our facade improvement grant program. It's important to also make sure that our streets are clutter-free, that we have passable thoroughfares. Downtowns all across the country enjoy high walkability score. Let's maintain that. And there's some efforts that I want to describe where we can enhance that. There's a well-balanced retail mix. We've seen a dramatic shift in the retail market. Many of the namestay brands that we've loved and support over the years, they've gone wayside. We have phenomenal small businesses in our community that can fill vacant spaces and storefronts throughout downtown. Spectacular active plazas and open spaces. Now more than ever, the pandemic has showed us that outdoor spaces are important. As I just listened to Dr. Avegno's presentation, we know that we'll have many spectators in our outdoor spaces, and so it's important for us to curate that experience and really deliver a high quality experience. Finally, reliable infrastructure, and of course, a safe and inviting community for all. So what's not high quality of life? What you see here are just a few photographs of some conditions that exist in our downtown. I'm not proud to say that these are conditions that we see. However, I know that we have a tremendous opportunity. I am excited again by the outreach, the partnership, the collaboration that we've undertaken with city departments thus far, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But certainly, these are not exemplary of a high quality of life. So what is the strategy?
Can I ask a question? Can you go back a slide, please?
Yes.
I know this isn't my district, but this stuff is sort of like what bothers everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So when you communicate with DPW or Sewage and Water Board, do they give you, this is a hierarchy of needs, this is when it's going to be fixed, we also have a convention in town, so we know that there's going to be heavy traffic in this area, and we want this to be prioritized? I mean, how is that working out?
Sure. So I'll certainly get into the detail of that. I would say presently we utilize the city's 311 system, and as I continue in the presentation, you'll hear some of our new tactics.
Do you all have a specific point of contact at both DPW and, because look, let me just say this.
Yes.
I'll take a step back. Predating DDD, I have been fussing at Sewage and Water Board for 4 years that they need to have commercial agents who work directly with agencies like DDD or your hotels, so that way if there's a boil water advisory or there's something that's happening, they don't have to call 52 Water. So it is, and look, this affects council members King and Harris more than it affects me, but it is inefficient way to do business in the city to expect a district that is trying to promote downtown not to be able to have their problems resolved in short order.
No, I appreciate that concern, council member. And in fact, yes, there would be a hierarchy. Specifically, we have Mardi Gras underway, and so when there are major incidents, we want to identify those solutions and contact department directors directly so that we address those situations.
Thank you.
All right, so what is the strategy? It may appear complex. It's not. It's really about partnership. What I do want to stress is that while the DDD is not a city department, we do work very closely with our colleagues at the city to deliver results. And so I want to walk through what are some key pillars of our strategy, specifically as it relates to beautification, safety, as well as economic development. More importantly, beautification and safety are absolutely critical pillars to facilitating economic development. And I cannot stress that enough. So let's talk about beautification. Council member, you just asked a question about how do we improve efficiency in our operations. As an organization, we're excited. We are embracing technology and modernizing. One of the new tools that we're onboarding is a new 311 system within our agency. This allows us to keep track of public assets throughout downtown. It's a system that's utilized by a number of business improvement districts all across the country. It's called a CRM system. At the end of the day, the DDD will be able to keep track of every single tree, every single trash can, every single light post. And what that allows us to do is keep track of the maintenance issues associated with those so that we can coordinate with our public partners. And, when we look at Canal Street as an example, my dream is to see every light post along Canal Street painted. The DDD, we stand ready to work with our partners to accomplish that effort. We're also on the technology front. We've adopted some new location analytics software. Again, that allows us to calibrate and deploy our resources. We're able to measure where visitors are coming from, whether they're workers, residents, or tourists. Look at where peak hours where those activities take place so that we can essentially deploy our resources, specifically as it relates to pressure washing. We do a lot of pressure washing in downtown, and so making sure that we address those high pedestrian areas is really critical as well. Another big item that I think is really exciting, I'm really excited about this, is, again, I pointed out that our DDD public safety rangers, they are civilian personnel. However, we've been in conversation with our partners at Department of Code Enforcement, and we're looking to deputize our rangers to provide the authority to do code enforcement, specifically on quality of life matters. And so there would be a CEA that would allow our rangers to tackle those issues, maybe trash left out inappropriately on the sidewalk, a loud noise, some of those smaller incidents. And so, while we believe in the carrot approach, there's also the need for the stick as well. And so we want to utilize that. We also, again, making sure that we broadcast and educate our property owners. We know the pandemic was a really tough time for many of our property owners' businesses. While we intend to utilize the stick, we also want to utilize the carrot as well. And so part of this is just simply reminding property owners and businesses about what their responsibilities are, what the appropriate trash day is, recycling, how to, loud noises. Just a simple reminder. And so we'll be developing some marketing materials that can be distributed to businesses throughout the district. We're also expanding our homeless outreach program. When I talk about partnership, I personally want to thank the mayor's office and the city administration. We're utilizing Wisner funding to expand our homeless outreach services. Again, we know that this is a critical area. As I mentioned before, downtowns all across the country, we're seeing a rise in homelessness with the economic climate. And so this is an important tool to allow us to provide some services there. Activating the program in our public spaces, another exciting opportunity for us. One park that the Downtown Development District developed a few years ago is called Legacy Park. Outdoors are really important spaces, great amenity areas, and so we're going to be activating those spaces more with outdoor programming. There may be outdoor music or fitness activities, again, providing amenities for our residents, our workers, and our visitors. When we talk about from an infrastructure standpoint, certainly one of the largest improvements that will be coming within downtown is a new stormwater management plan. This is, again, in terms of collaboration with the DDD and the city. We're excited about this. The DDD is contributing $5 million toward this effort. The design for the project will actually kick off at the end of March. We're anticipating construction to begin on this project at the end of the year. This would be 19 blocks within downtown, enhanced treatment to allow us to address stormwater.
Do you know if there's going to be a dedicated project manager for this specific project?
I believe so, yes. And I should also mention that the DDD, we're engaging our own design contractor to review plans to work in coordination with the city.
I just want to make sure that there is actual progress on these projects rather than the stalled infrastructure projects that litter District B.
Absolutely, a council member. I can tell you that this is a key priority for many downtown businesses. I would also like to note that as this project is underway, it's important for us to minimize disruption as well to our businesses. Placement of signage, we're open for business. Continue to support Canal Street businesses. Explaining when construction will occur. So that type of collaboration is absolutely critical. On the public safety front, we're also looking at additional lighting throughout the district. We certainly understand that at the end of the day, public safety is about boots on the ground and policing. However, at the DDD, we take a comprehensive approach to public safety. We know when there's more light in the public realm, people feel more safe. And so, again, utilizing some new funding coming through the mayor's office and the Wisner funding, this allows us to place new lighting throughout the district. We're also expanding our facade improvement grant program, specifically encouraging property owners to install exterior lighting. We've been in conversation with the police department as well about expanding the Safe Camps program. Again, this is a great collaboration opportunity where a private property owner can avail footage so that we have a force multiplier in case there's an incident throughout the district.
Do you have a timeline for this? Because I know this is something that some citizens that we met with are concerned about.
Sure. No, I do not have a specific deadline at this point. I can tell you that I did meet with with Captain Gontier about a week ago, and so we're continuing this conversation.
Great, thank you.
We're also looking at roadway improvements as well, signalization. We know that traffic management is very, very important. Again, we have a high walkability score, but that doesn't mean anything if sidewalk markings aren't properly painted, if the signalization isn't working. So that coordination is absolutely critical. And finally, realigning our public safety assets to address priority hotspots. So I just wanted to provide a bit of creative inspiration here when we talk about public lighting. So this is an example from my prior life. This is a historic tunnel adjacent to a hospital, major employer, and residences. As you can see here, this was a dark area and an area for concern. As the downtown organization, we reached out and we're working collaboratively with our partners and created something that looks like this. Again, enlivened public space, great accessible promenade, workers, visitors, all felt more comfortable walking through this area. And so we know there are opportunities like this throughout the district, particularly some of our major gateways, entrances into downtown, and so we're looking to undertake efforts on that front. With respect to economic development, again, at the end of the day, we need to inspire investment. Our streets need to be clean. The area needs to be safe. Without that, economic development cannot occur. And so, I'm excited about the partnership opportunities that we have not only with the city's economic development department, GNO Inc., New Orleans Business Alliance. We're all in this together. We understand the importance of downtown as an economic center. When we talk about the impact of the pandemic on our office buildings, we know that our buildings are vacant. We've got to get workers back into downtown. There's a direct impact on many of the small businesses, and so engaging those workers, making sure that they do not forget about downtown is vital to us. Canal Street, I'm a retail guy. I am very excited about the future of Canal Street. What may seem like a daunting task, it's not. I know what happens when there's attention to detail, when we work with property owners to focus on leasing, when we execute code enforcement, when we bring incentives to the table and matchmake. Again, we have an opportunity to connect many of the entrepreneurs and small businesses in our community, have them located on Canal Street, and so there's a lot we'll be doing on this front. And I should also note that working collaboratively with New Orleans Business Alliance, we're gearing up for a big retail showing at an upcoming retail show, again, to showcase the opportunities that are here in New Orleans. We're also looking at a new provision in our commercial leases, what I'm calling a good neighbor clause. Again, we want to remind property owners that their businesses have a responsibility to be good neighbors. This seems like a little detail, but it's important. Again, we're all part of this community, and we want to remind them that this is what it takes. It takes a village for us to have a great place here. Promoting redevelopment of vacant buildings. I am excited. Our Board of Commissioners is really passionate about this. We understand the importance of having lively streets. And last month, our Board of Directors endorsed a letter of support for some important pending federal legislation. It's called the Revitalizing Downtowns Act. It essentially provides a tax credit to developers to convert outdated office buildings into mixed-use assets or residential. I would like to note that if a property is converted to a residential use, there is a 20% set-aside requirement for affordable housing. That's important when we look at downtown. Downtown is for everyone, and so it's a mixed-income environment. Finally, we'll be producing quarterly economic indicator reports. This is something that I think is absolutely important for the public and transparency to show regularly the importance, the vitality of downtown, and how we're performing in terms of some of our key metrics. Trash pickup, litter removal, pressure washing. While we do this already, we're looking to do this in a more robust manner. So what are the costs of inaction? This isn't hyperbole. Downtowns all across the country are really fighting for their lives right now. But we have tremendous partners in this community. I remain excited about the partnership opportunities. If we do not focus on these details, we do run the risk of contributing to poor brand reputation. that reputation that hinders our ability to attract conventions, tourists, companies in our community. There's stagnant job growth. We know that there's poverty in this community. Downtown is committed to helping to eliminate poverty in this community.